a remarkably low 72.
Hitler's right arm is painfully swollen. He can hardly lift it. His jacket is in tatters and his trousers are hanging in strips around his legs.
Morell removes more than 100 oak splinters from Hitler's legs. The Führer has cuts on his forehead, and his eardrums have burst. Morell also notes Hitler's mental state. He appears elated.
Halb so schlimm, ich bin unsterblich.
Hitler's valet, Heinz Linge, listens as the Führer claims the hand of destiny is at work.
Oberschiffer Linge, kommen Sie schnell! Mein Führer, was ist geschehen? Versucht mich umzubringen. Die Vorsehung hat mir erneut ein Zeichen gesetzt. Ich bin unsterblich.
Hitler was convinced that on that day Providence had demonstrated its great power. It was an almost religious belief that he had been chosen to guide Germany's destiny and to lead the country to victory.
The bomb has backfired. Hitler is more resolved than ever to pursue the war to its bloody end.
Ich bin unsterblich.
Over lunch, Stalin nourishes his own ambition. He aims to gobble up an entire nation.
Stalin has his own plans for Poland, and he knows that they're going to rile Churchill. Churchill has a Polish government in exile waiting in London to take part in a democratic Poland. Stalin, on the other hand, has his own forces about to liberate Poland, and he has every intention of creating a communist Poland.
Ganz Geschichte strategy. America дает деньги, Великобритания дает время. Только Россия отдает кровь. Мы завоевали Польшу, кровь. Она наша.
Meanwhile, the awful truth dawns on a key conspirator. Hitler has survived. Major General Feldgiebel must warn his co-conspirators without implicating himself. He phones a message to the switchboard at the Berlin headquarters, which relays it to the conspirators. Something terrible has happened. The Führer is alive. 8 words with no clue what to do next.
This was, in fact, a crucial mistake because it was an ambiguous message and left the conspirators in Berlin in utter confusion.
With Stauffenberg still en route and out of touch, the conspirators in Berlin decide to wait for his arrival. Even if Hitler's alive, word of the bombing could still trigger a rebellion. The coup might yet succeed. Unaware of the Führer's fate, would-be assassin Klaus von Stauffenberg heads to Berlin to overthrow the Nazi regime. In London, Winston Churchill pores over other Nazi secrets.
The interception and decoding of Germany's radio communications, codenamed Ultra, was Churchill's greatest wartime secret. By 1943, over 3,000 such messages were being decoded every day. So sometimes Churchill, in London, was reading at lunchtime the same message that Hitler didn't get in Berlin until supper.
While Churchill takes his afternoon nap, one decoded message brings the first inkling of trouble in Germany.
Intelligence reports stated that train services had been suspended between Germany and neutral Sweden, a sure indication that something was up.
It's now 3/4 of an hour since the assassination attempt.
Sollen wir die Besprechung mit dem Duce verschieben?
Alles muss so weitergehen wie geplant. Was würde die Weltpresse sonst sagen?
Keiner weiß, was geschehen.
Nobody knows who's behind this. The yellow-white light produced by the explosion led them to conclude that English explosives were used. That was all they knew.
Weiß man nicht.
Everyone has his own theory. Some believe the bomb was thrown through the window, perhaps by a British agent. Others think it was dropped by a British plane. Gestapo chief Heinrich Himmler orders the compound secured and searched for more bombs. None turn up. As Hitler's wounds are treated, he seems rejuvenated by his miraculous survival.
Junge, werfen Sie diese Uniform nicht weg. Ich will sie an Fräulein Braun schicken als Andenken.
Hitler has now survived 42 assassination attempts, perhaps the most of any leader.
It is really almost incredible how Hitler evaded his fate so many times. And it is no wonder that he himself thought he was protected by Providence, which otherwise he probably didn't believe.
Just how did Hitler survive the blast?
Fräulein Schröder, die Lage wird deshalb bereits um 12:30 beginnen.
The moment Hitler moved up the briefing, Stauffenberg's plan was compromised. The bombs were hard to prime and impossible to deactivate, leaving no room for error. The second factor was location. Due to construction, the meeting venue was changed.
A couple of years before, even half a year before, the Situation Conference used to be held in a bunker. Now it took place in a hut. All of the windows were open, so that most of the energy unleashed during such an explosion could escape into the open.
Had the briefing been held in the concrete bunker, everyone would have been incinerated. Third, the placement of the bomb. When Colonel Heinz Brandt moved the briefcase, he placed it on the other side of the heavy table leg. The leg can be clearly seen in this picture. Undoubtedly, this piece of oak helped save the Führer's life. Hitler's final stroke of luck? Seconds before the blast, his attention was drawn to a detail on a map in the middle of the table.
Die Ironie der Geschichte wollte es, dass die
The irony of the situation, the cruel irony, was that the huge tabletop, which really should have gone up with the explosion and bludgeoned Hitler, now in fact became a kind of protection for him.
Yet Hitler's luck would have been blown to bits, if not for one crucial mistake by Stauffenberg. Suddenly disturbed during his preparations, he panicked for an instant and failed to put the second bomb in his briefcase.
Well, it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, that why didn't they leave the second bomb in the bag? As I know from my training, it would have gone off in what is called a sympathetic explosion. Of course, the effect would have been dramatically different.
The blast from the first bomb would have detonated the unarmed second bomb, and no one would have survived. In Moscow, Stalin plots the fate of Poland. In London, Churchill naps, unaware of events unfolding in Europe. In San Diego, the worst passes for Roosevelt. He has recovered from what was likely a minor stroke. He's the second leader to survive a serious threat to his life today.
Wir haben die gesamte Anlage durchkämmt, mein Führer. Keine weiteren Bomben auf dem Gelände.
Field Marshal Keitel updates Hitler on the plot against his life.
Es ist ein Wunder, dass Sie überlebt haben. 11 Schwerverwundete und eine Person gilt als vermisst. Wir suchen noch immer nach Oberst von Stauffenberg.
It's now clear the assassin isn't a British agent, but a member of Hitler's own army. But was he acting alone, or as part of a conspiracy?
When Stauffenberg arrives in Berlin, he's still unaware that Hitler is alive after all.
Stauffenberg gets his first hint that something's wrong.
There's no car waiting for him at the airfield. He gets very impatient. It takes another hour before he arrives at the army headquarters in the Bendlerstraße. In the meantime, the coup is unraveling fast.
Although a 2-pound bomb exploded at his feet little more than 2 hours ago, Hitler prepares to meet the Italian dictator, Mussolini. He's in some pain, but his narrow escape has energized him.
I think that if he was doubting victory, he suddenly might have found a glimmer of confidence. Perhaps, in a way, fate was on his side.
Unable to raise his right arm, Hitler greets Mussolini with his left hand. Over lunch, Stalin nourishes his own ambition. He aims to gobble up an entire nation.
Stalin has his own plans for Poland, and he knows that they're going to rile Churchill. Churchill has a Polish government in exile waiting in London to take part in a democratic Poland. Stalin, on the other hand, has his own forces about to liberate Poland, and he has
a remarkably low 72.
Hitler's right arm is painfully swollen. He can hardly lift it. His jacket is in tatters, and his trousers are hanging in strips around his legs.
Morel removes more than 100 oak splinters from Hitler's legs. The Führer has cuts on his forehead, and his eardrums have burst. Morel also notes Hitler's mental state. He appears elated.
Halb so schlimm. Ich bin unsterblich.
Hitler's valet, Heinz Linge, listens as the Führer claims the hand of destiny is at work.
Kommen Sie schnell! Mein Führer, was ist geschehen? Versucht mich umzubringen. Die Vorsehung hat mir erneut ein Zeichen gesetzt. Ich bin unsterblich.
Hitler was convinced that on that day Providence had demonstrated its great power. It was an almost religious belief that he had been chosen to guide Germany's destiny and to lead the country to victory.
The bomb has backfired. Hitler is more resolved than ever to pursue the war to its bloody end.
Ich bin unsterblich.